A hacker comes in many forms.
He's interested in everything.
He can work alone. But with a crew, so much better. A hacker is free.
With Cisco, protecting your business from cyber attackers is simple. If it's connected, you're protected. At Cisco, our purpose is to power an inclusive future for all. And in that future, Mother Nature has a voice.
How have things been at work?
It's Groundhog Day. You know, just always the builder, never the architect. And the thing is I've got ideas. Big ideas about better products, new revenue streams, smarter investments, but the thing is I can't focus on any of that because here I am too busy like playing whack-a-mole all day.
It's a lot of metaphors today.
Thank you.
So it sounds like you need a platform that drastically reduces the amount of confusion caused by zillions of analytics tools and focuses the data for you.
Something that allows me to spend time thinking big picture.
Something that would reduce the amount of app system errors, pinpoint areas of improvement, and proactively suggest fixes.
Exactly. Why do you know that?
Don't know.
It's a new day for the new era. AI is everywhere. So are we. We have the infrastructure AI needs. And now, the breadth of data AI craves. We'll use AI to help the world see more, do more, and we'll secure it like never before. You've all heard the AI hype. Now you want AI's help. That's exactly what we'll give you. Cisco, making AI work for you.
Where will you be in 5 years? Where will we be in 5 years? In 25? In 50? Let's be here and here, with her and him and they. Let's connect them. Let's connect everyone. Let's deliver technology that gives them access to power opportunity. Let's set a new standard for data security and personal privacy. Let's change the system. Promote equality and fairness in the workplace. Let's tear down the barriers to social justice for a more inclusive world. Let's clean house, zero carbon, zero waste. Because the health of our family is tied to the future of our home. Let's gather resources and partners, steer toward our greatest challenges and accelerate. For the benefit, for all. Cisco has made it its purpose to power an inclusive future for all. Where will we be in 50 years? Let's go see. Cisco, the bridge to possible.
Humans and nature. We're in this together. But to keep coexisting, we need to do more to protect our planet. Cisco Smart Building Solutions and our partners' technology can benefit both humans and nature, helping us make the best use of space and optimize energy consumption for the changing way we work. Making connections that deliver power and enable automation, creating efficiencies that can help the workplace and the planet, and freeing teams to work from anywhere while creating engaging experiences thanks to AI-driven collaboration tools. Sustainability initiatives are part of powering an inclusive future for all. With Cisco Smart Building Solutions, we believe all businesses can better optimize their energy use. Between meeting human needs and a sustainable future, there's a bridge. Cisco, the bridge to possible. At Cisco, we believe inclusion isn't just the right thing to do, it's the innovative thing to do. Because every invention, every improvement, every achievement, every small step and giant leap inside our company and in the history of the world started when a different perspective was invited, a different voice was elevated, a different opinion was accepted. To us, inclusion is progress. And it's why we're reimagining how people come together, changing the system, tearing down barriers, respecting and honoring each other's identities, promoting equality and fairness, using technology to create more opportunities, and powering a more inclusive future for each other, for good, for all.
Control, acelera y freno se contó. Control, porque a la hora la manejo yo. Con control, Bailemos lento, pero bregao. Todo va muy rápido, voy a parar el tiempo. Se posa los minutos cuando yo meneo este cuerpo. Me quedo parada a ver qué es lo que No hay tiempo y dimensión. Lo único que escucho es el ritmo de la canción. Ni segundo ni minuto. Acelera y freno se control.
A cyber attack can grind everything to a halt. Cisco Security keeps your network and your company moving forward. Because if it's connected, it's protected. Cisco.
So what do you think here, Cam? 7?
It needs to carry 150, right?
Yeah.
Should be perfect.
Cisco's purpose is to power an inclusive future for all. That's why we're working with the APGA and the USGA to make golf more inclusive.
Shot. Thanks.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
We're teeing up tomorrow because the more of us who play, the better golf is for all of us.
man. Great putt. Great putt.
Nice job. Way to go. A hacker doesn't always look like a hacker. A hacker's at home, everywhere. A hacker comes in many forms.
He's interested in everything.
He can work alone. But with a crew, so much better. A hacker is free.
With Cisco, protecting your business from cyber attackers is simple. If it's connected, you're protected. At Cisco, our purpose is to power an inclusive future for all. And in that future, Mother Nature has a voice.
How have things been at work?
It's Groundhog Day. You know, just always the builder, never the architect. And the thing is I've got ideas. Big ideas about better products, new revenue streams, smarter investments, but the thing is I can't focus on any of that because here I am too busy like playing whack-a-mole all day.
It's a lot of metaphors today.
Thank you.
So it sounds like you need a platform that drastically reduces the amount of confusion caused by zillions of analytics tools and focuses the data for you.
Something that allows me to spend time thinking big picture.
Something that would reduce the amount of app system errors, pinpoint areas of improvement, and proactively suggest fixes.
Exactly. Why do you know that?
Don't know.
It's a new day for the new era. AI is everywhere. So are we. We have the infrastructure AI needs. And now, the breadth of data AI craves. We'll use AI to help the world see more, do more, and we'll secure it like never before. You've all heard the AI hype. Now you want AI's help. That's exactly what we'll give you. Cisco, making AI work for you.
Welcome to Day 2 of Cisco Live Melbourne 2024. Before we begin, I would like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land in which we meet today, the Wurundjeri people of the Eastern Kulin Nation. I would like to pay my respect to elders past and present and extend that respect to Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people here today. I acknowledge their connection to the land, sea, and community. My name is Emerald Williamson. For those that are joining for the first time today, I'm an account manager based out of Sydney, Australia, but I am your 3-time Cisco Live host. I'm not here alone. I'm here with my 2 favorite Cisconians, Dave and Chica, who have deigned to come back for a second day in a row, thank God. But let's say hello, Dave.
Thank you, Em. Yes, hello, and hello everyone out there. My name is Dave Wood, account manager here at Cisco. And as Em mentioned, it's the second time co-host of Cisco Live, the best event on the Cisco calendar as well, I must admit. But there is 3 of us, of course. Please allow me to introduce Chica. Chica, how are you?
Hello, good. So good to be back. Hi, everyone tuning in. I'm Shika Yadav, one of the customer success managers here in Australia. And I'm so happy to be back with the 2 hosts from last year. And it's been an incredible day 1. So much has happened. And I do want to kind of touch on this year's theme, which is Go Beyond, which for Cisco, what it means is that we help our customers and partners to go beyond what's possible and help them to work smarter, faster, and safer. What does it mean to you guys?
Yeah, well, I think for me, it was sort of going beyond this, the studio and the set, going beyond around the world of solutions, having a look at all of our technology, getting hand-on, going beyond, checking out some of the guest talks and on center stage as well. That was what it meant for me.
Yeah, and I know yesterday I spoke that, there's one going beyond for my customers who are looking at what the next stage of their journey is with AI and then doing this particular broadcast. But actually, I think I have to shout out, it's all of the engineers that are here at Cisco Live. My own engineer, Dennis, he's here with customers. He's going around the world of solutions. But he was actually running a talk on Monday as well. So not only was he looking at, what's next for our customer set, he was building a presentation, talking about packet captures in particular. And all of our speakers here at Cisco Live are actually engineers in their day job. So they're really taking that theme. And so I think it's a really good way to acknowledge, what they're doing today.
I think that's a great call out, and that's what a great part about Cisco as well. They encourage you to do your day job and be an engineer, but also share that knowledge and encourage, share that shared learning across the wider team here. And I know you touched on your engineer. I must call out my engineer as well, Rachel. She's been incredible. While we've been here at the desk, she's out there making sure our customers are well looked after. She's in the world of solutions, capture the flag, but she's been amazing.
Yeah, I think that's one thing about Cisco, that it pushes us to go beyond, which helps us to support our partners and our customers to go beyond as well. And like in the world of AI, ever-changing world of AI, there's so much more that customers and partners need to do to secure their network, and Cisco supporting in that journey. So there's so much unknown in this area, but it's about us supporting them in the right way with our engineers and with our account teams and with our BUs as well. So
yeah, this is actually a great opportunity to be a two-way conversation as well, because I know that there's so many people out there that are watching that are engineers, that are part of their IT teams, who've gone beyond for their organization. Or maybe there's someone else in your team that's really gone beyond for you and what you're looking for. So, reach out to us. Get online to our socials. Use the hashtag Cisco Live APJC. We would love to hear your stories about what you're doing in your organization, how an engineer has gone beyond for you, whether it's maybe fixing a customer problem, whether it's actually creating something new within your organization, or if maybe they're leading the conversation in terms of inclusivity or in sustainability, which is also a big theme that we have here.
Yeah. And I think if you weren't able to join us yesterday, all the videos and all the recordings will be available on demand. So don't worry if you missed yesterday's action. Everything will be available on demand. And also, mentioning AI, we have translations in 8 languages, for this time around. So tune in, and we have another jam-packed day for you.
But maybe before we start on today, I would love to hear your highlights about yesterday, and then we can maybe direct people to our favorite segments.
So much unpacked from yesterday. Yeah. I mean, my head's still spinning and buzzing. I've heard that many acronyms. I've heard AI a lot. I've heard observability. I've heard security. There's so much unpack and share. But day one was fantastic.
Yeah, what was your favorite part?
I think my interview with Dave West was quite, but I think that was the highlight. A lot of people did watch that live, and I met them later, and they were like, that was really good, because hearing that side of Dave, like the fun side kind of, and also his perspective on what you touched on yesterday about growth in APJC and how different we are as a region, which kind of makes us stand out from the Americas or the EMEA region culturally and in terms of the fast-growing technologies and early adopters, if we may. So I think that was some really good insights from Dave, so that was the highlight. And yeah, there was a lot more. I think going into the world of solutions, when we made that video, not the part where I lost from both of you guys in the arcade games, but other than that, world of solutions, it's done so well. There's so many, 75 demos, almost a team of 200 people putting it together. Amazing, incredible effort.
It's fun. You mentioned your interview with Dave West, and I think I alluded to it in my earlier call out, but Dave West, he goes to all the Cisco Lives, right? And he calls Cisco Live APJC the best Cisco Live out of everything. So, yeah, it's definitely a good call out.
Completely unbiased by the fact that we probably give him Tim Tams.
And that he is the leader of our region. Nothing to do with that.
Nothing to do with that at all.
We toned down the Tim Tams with some Vegemite as well, though.
Yeah. So it kind of evens out.
What about you? What was your highlight?
For me, I think the keynote was fantastic. It really was, and we've already touched on Dave West, but from Tom Gillis as well, and Jackie G out there on stage. I think everyone had some incredible highlights in that keynote, and I really encourage everyone to get out there and rewatch it again on the on-demand library. But the sort of better together story, the networking, security, observability, and collaboration all coming together now, underpinned by AI. It's a remarkable story.
Yeah, and we'll touch on the 3 key pillars as well from the keynote in a moment. But I have to say, we really knocked it out of the park with some of the interviews yesterday as well. I was very, very blessed to have interviewed Colonel Michael King, who was from the Australian Defence Force. It's one of the first times we've actually had a customer come on to the set as well. And it's really great to hear a different perspective outside of Cisco internal about what they view an industry partnership to look like, and especially for the defence industry, which is operating in environments that are inhospitable, that are not connected like we are in the city or even in regional areas, and with such an important job of making sure that they protect the lives of their personnel. It's great to hear that the relationship that he has with Cisco is one of trust and something that they're not looking for, and really realistically for our AI future, not looking for in the first year, the second year, the third year, they're looking 10 years ahead.
Yeah.
So hearing that from him
I
directly.
Think that's something different about this year as well. We have a lot of customer interviews because the studio interviews itself, we have 2 customers, you had one. I have one today as well where I'll be interviewing Nick Walker, who's the general manager of Cold Strategy, which is something that I'm really looking forward to because I think on our daily events like these, we always talk about our technology, what's new, what are the enhancements, but actually listening from the customer, how they were able to actually implement those technologies and see the use cases that they were able to map out. So definitely tune into that interview. I'm really looking forward to that one. So
I think the customers are great. It creates that sort of thought leadership and shared learning, as I said, across the environment is what we're all about. I think we should also call out, it is about all the technology, but it's not always. We also have some other messages as well. And I think I really like that Cisco Live, it continues, and we're continuing to aim towards our net zero goals of 2040. And sustainability features heavily across all of Cisco Live. I mean, all the reusable sets and stands, the T-shirts made from recycled bottles, all the coffee cups, and so much more here. Fully sustainable. It's amazing.
Yeah, it feels like a small effort, but actually it makes so much difference.
Huge difference,
40,000 plastic bottles, and then we were encouraged to reuse our clothing from last year as well. And then it's just that message, and we have a big sustainability booth in the world of solutions where you can go and see how Cisco's different technology, security, collaboration can actually help with your organization's sustainability goal. So yeah, that's definitely, if you're around here, if you're listening to us, you should definitely go and check out the sustainability talks and the World of Solutions sustainability stand.
Yeah, we've truly embedded it as part of, not even just the way that we run our events, but in our technology as well. So looking at even smart buildings to ensure that we're not using all of the electricity. And we have many different buying programs as well, which I think Sarah Simpson will talk about later today in terms of green pay to ensure that, we're recycling and using a circular economy motion for all of the technology as we upgrade from where we are today and as organizations move and become more AI ready into the infrastructure that will help them, in the future in 5 to 10 years. But, in the keynote, there were 3 different pillars. We looked at future workplace, we looked at digital resilience, and we also looked at, I think it was observability was the last one.
I think it was the AI-powered data center, and I think that was a huge call out for me. And with AI taking on larger workloads, that the fact that at Cisco we are ready with our AI-powered infrastructure, ready to go. AI pods are here. That was a really good announcement as well.
The AI agent in the WebEx Contact Center, the demo was incredible. I think if people were tuning in, if you haven't actually had a look at the demo of the AI agent, you definitely should. That was
really appeals to me. Can be a bit more lazier now. Just make some phone calls. I feel like I just need to pick up the phone now, and someone does it for me. It's amazing.
Yeah. So what should we be looking forward to in day 2?
I think we have something called the Keynote Deep Dive, which is a newer section that was added this year. So obviously we have the Keynote every year, which is an incredible session. We had that yesterday, a lot of new announcements. But Keynote Deep Dive kind of goes deeper into every pillar that was announced. So we have one today starting in about 5 minutes. So you should definitely tune into that one. And the pillar that would be covered would be the digital resilience. And Splunk, we have Patrick Lynn. If you enjoyed his interview with M yesterday, that you definitely don't want to miss out on the session, because they're going to go deeper into observability. And we have Christine Lau and Mark joining them. So it's a jam-packed Splunk team going onto the stage, going deeper into the keynote. So that's something that is coming today as well.
Yeah, I think another key call is the fireside chat later on today. I think the first time this is going to feature at Cisco Live APJC. So a fireside chat with our principal analyst Zeus, and on stage with Dave West and Tom Gillis, really diving deeper into the Splunk integration and the AI capabilities and security across our security stack now as well. It's going to be very exciting.
Yeah, we've had so many product announcements as well, such as the Wi-Fi 7 APs. But I think this year is really technology focused as we build into that AI infrastructure. So we've even looked at previous announcements that are really important today, such as Hypershield, are going to be great. And I'm going to have the pleasure of interviewing 2 amazing engineers later today, which is Raman and Story. And so they'll be discussing, their journey as an engineer, but also what they think about what the future holds. So I think, we've got a really technical focus.
Those interviews are always very popular, kind of for a lot of our engineer audience who are tuning in from various parts of Asia Pacific, because obviously we have all the leaders talk about AI, about observability, but with the architects, it's like which is our core at Cisco, is our technology and our engineers, how they build everything. So I think, those are really exciting interviews that you have lined up.
I think I have, I'll call out my interview as well. I have Omri Gulfand, our VP of Product Management of SASE Solutions, and I think that's going to be very prevalent today. And it's what's resonating a lot with my customers at the moment. Everyone's working from everywhere. Applications are now stored everywhere. How do we secure those safely with SASE?
Yeah, that digital resilience piece is going to be really important, and I think that's why this Keynote Deep Dive is going to be great. In fairness, after Patrick Lynn yesterday, I had to Google a couple of things. I'm like, I don't think, maybe my understanding of digital resilience is not where we're going, but the fact is, it's an organization. You need to be able to adapt to all the evolving, change in technology. So this is one to watch.
Yeah, agree. So, we do have the Keynote Deep Dive, as Em mentioned, coming up soon, where we have Patrick Lynn, who is the General Manager of Observability at Cisco, joining Christine Lau and Mark Marklock, who will be going onto the stage and telling you everything about how observability and AppDynamics are coming together to make a journey even better for all of you out there. So, over to Patrick, Christine, and Mark.
Please welcome to the stage Cisco's Head of Observability APAC, Splunk, Christine Lowe.
Thank you. Really thrilled to be here at sunny, actually I'm sorry, it's actually rainy Melbourne, Cisco Live. I'm sure by the end of this session, it will be sunny again. So anyway, let me start today by taking you back in time. So to a quote that you can see here from our former CTO and co-founder Eric Swan back in 2003. Now he said, "We had built a big transactional engine, but it was hard to troubleshoot these systems when something went wrong." Now if you fast forward to today, the challenges remain the same. Splunk has always been in the observability business. We just didn't call it that early on. It wasn't called observability back on, right? And if you think about why Splunk was created, it was to help IT operations teams to troubleshoot problems and keep the applications and infrastructure up and running. Now, personas that we work with today has expanded. The tech stacks that we can monitor has evolved, and the impact of an outage is more acute. But the core reason why we exist still remains the same. Now, let me then go through and say earlier this year, we partnered with Oxford Economics, a global research institute, to actually quantify the cost of downtime. Every year, this is what is found, the report says, every year, the global 2,000 companies actually waste more than $400 billion on downtime. That is $200 million per company. And let me break this down a little bit more. So think about if you have an e-commerce site and your buy now button no longer works, it stops working. Now this leads to lost sales, and that's lost revenue to your company. Or perhaps you're not meeting your SLAs. You're literally burning cash through by paying these SLA penalties. Downtime is estimated to cost about $9,000 per minute, and that's $540,000 per hour. Now, there's also things like hidden costs, such as stagnant developer productivity or delayed time to market. And now, perhaps the most significant hidden cost, 28% of those respondents in the report says that a downtime event actually diminishes shareholder value. So organizations can expect somewhere between 1 to 9%, and actually it's average of 2.5% drop in your stock price from a single downtime event. Not only that, it takes 79 days to recover from that. Now that, I don't know about you, but that is really painful to any organizations. So companies must prevent downtime before it happens. So if you're here with me and as well as listening online, it's no surprise that digital resilience is of high priority, right? You're focused on three things. What is it? Fix problems faster, improve reliability, and build better customer experience. Now, because if you don't do that, you risk the market moving on and you get left behind, and your competitors will, you lose out to your competitors. Now, those three simple things, I know it sounds simple, but I know it's incredibly hard to do, right? The technologies that continue to explode, right? And something as simple, something as a simple error can actually cause severe bottlenecks. And diagnosing these issues in a complex and interconnected environment is incredibly tough, because the problems could be anywhere. The solutions to those problems could be buried in multiple observability tools. And these tools are expensive, right? They're disconnected, and they don't share the same data. So, we all know as companies move to the cloud and the pace of the innovations starts ramping up, it becomes harder to validate the impact of changes both to the business and to your customer experience. So let me put yourself in the shoes of a director of tech operations or an engineering manager for a minute. Think about a single error and what impact it could have. So let's say an SRE misconfigured a part of the network that controls the data flow to your ERP systems, right? It can cause severe network bottlenecks that snowballs to a overloaded backend systems that sees a slow page load on your websites, and that leads to user frustration and abandonment. So getting to the bottom of these cascading problems in such like this is tough. It's very hard in an environment that spans across hundreds of services. Particularly, obviously, we have teams that actually manages and maintains these services. They use their own set of tools, and there's no shared understanding between these tools. So the problems could be anywhere. It could be the network. Is obviously the first one off that's blame, obviously. It could be your infrastructure. It could be a buggy app code. It could be a third-party app failure. Or maybe it's a security issue like a DDoS attacks. And in fact, it could be a combination of all of this. It still comes down to too much toil, so you still need that. Too much toil, you still need guesswork, you still need run expensive war room calls to find the answers to these problems. And sometimes you don't even know where to look. Now, worse, it's not easy to actually see how this application and infrastructure performance problems actually impact the matrix that matters most to the business. You have teams that really rely on they use fragile systems that actually just sends out too many alerts, and they cannot prioritize what matters most. And sometimes these critical alerts about the business, they either doesn't exist or they're buried under an avalanche of noise across multiple observability tools. Now, I know most teams here, we need to go beyond the basic application and infrastructure health matrix, like, well, my API is taking too long to respond, or my server is running out of space. We actually want answers to questions such as, when an outage, how does an outage to my supply chain impact the ability to get the products into the hands of our customers? Or how does a slowed response to my website impact purchases per second? Or perhaps, maybe, is there a subset of customers or users that are most valuable to the company, and are they experiencing any issues? Now, I'll be honest here, not even Cisco or Splunk independently can actually answer all these questions and help solve these challenges. But you know what's coming. Until now, right? Splunk Observability supercharged with AppDynamics is the only solution that can unlock the unified visibility across any environment, any stack, and that will power the observability for the entire enterprise. So I'm really excited to show you a bit more details about that. Now, it is not just about having the best tool for your three-tier application. We have that, AppDynamics. It is also not about having the best tool for your cloud-native environments. We have that too, Observability Cloud. It is much more than that. It is a fact, firstly, it is a fact that both of these tools are rooted in the same set of logs, the same information that will provide you smarter insights and, in some cases, actually even cheaper. Now, secondly, it is also not about a loosely stitched together set of disconnected tools. It is about unified experience through a common user interface, deep links with single sign-on and more. That is here to make your triage go a lot faster. And lastly, all this is overseen by IT Service Intelligence, the bird's eye view of your entire environment, a manager of managers view that aligns your IT and your business with service monitoring. It also reduces your alert noise. You've heard about the alert storm, the avalanche of noise, with intelligent alert correlation that helps you resolve your issues faster and actually prevent outages with embedded AI and machine language. Now, we're committed to providing you a seamless, unified experience. Our first priority was to get all the data connected for context-rich insights to help you move through the troubleshooting process. So, let me show you how it all comes together.
Your business operates across a highly complex environment. Some applications are on-premise, some you operate in the cloud, and others are entirely SaaS. It's a tangled web of technologies and services. Imagine this scenario. Your help desk has started to receive a flood of alerts, your glass table is showing that your revenue and other business metrics are unhealthy, and website checks are starting to fail. How quickly can you tame this beast, plug the leaks, and fix any customer-facing issues? Let's see how fast you can do this with Splunk Observability. Time starts now. First, you get a bird's-eye view of what's happening. The Service Analyzer confirms that not only are your critical business applications impacted, but that you're also losing revenue, so we need to figure out what's broken fast. With just a few clicks, you see that the problem originates with the payment service. Now we know where to look, and we can prioritize this instead of chasing down every problem to rule them out. And with a little more time, we can intuitively gather that the root cause is a bad API call. Now we can fix the issue rather than escalating the issue to continue troubleshooting. Now that we've triaged the most important problem, let's return to our bird's eye view in the Service Analyzer. We saw one of our on-premise applications is having issues too, so let's take a look at that. We can see that the commerce backend isn't super healthy right now, but the e-commerce application is the unhealthiest of them all. Since we have an informed starting point, let's investigate further. Here, you can quickly see that the issue is stemming from the database. This is causing response times to climb and connections to fail, and it looks like we caught this before it became a serious issue. Now we can let the database team know there's an issue proactively, instead of them getting a bunch of tickets from screen tests when it's too late. Coming back to the Service Analyzer, we can tell the rest of the services which might have an issue aren't as severe as the ones we just triaged, so we can give them a lower priority and keep our teams from firefighting everything as an emergency. And to that end, we have the relevant teams focusing on fixing problems now, instead of still trying to find needles in a haystack. In under 3 minutes, we've figured out what's broken, prioritized the problems based on their impact to your bottom line, sent all the necessary context to teams who can fix the issues, and also identified some root causes for them to fix the underlying problems. And that's just one example of how Splunk Observability can make your organization more resilient.
So I hope that's really exciting for you. So what I'd like to do is I've got the pleasure to welcome Patrick Lin, SVP of GM of Observability at Splunk.
All right. It's great to see everyone here. Welcome to the Cisco Silent Disco. Everyone can hear me, yeah? Because, there's no feedback, for me, but I see the head nods, so that's awesome. All right, so you guys just walked through a pretty cool demo there, right? And let me unpack a little bit of that for you just to make sure you understood kind of everything that we were showing you. Because where we started that was actually not what you would typically think of when you're looking at observability tools, right? Because that's about, hey, how's my server doing? Is it running hot? How's the network doing? Is there some extra latency over somewhere? How are the application services doing? And what we started with, in fact, was the business context, showing you what actually matters to the business. How is that website performing? How are the transactions coming through, right? Do you have a drop-off in that? Right? Do you have security issues coming in, right? So those are all the kinds of things that you actually want to start with, because that way when you have that context, the things that you're looking at actually then start to make a lot more sense, because then you know that you need to pay attention, right? So from there, we actually took you down 2 separate paths. Now, in reality, I think you could have gone down those paths in parallelized fashion, right? But what we actually did was talk through it sequentially, because that's what you do in a demo. But because there are two different branches there that you needed to follow, right? Part of it being for applications that are built using an n-tier architecture, right, where perhaps the database is an issue, or part of it is things built using microservices running on top of a public cloud infrastructure somewhere, right? Those are things that you needed to be able to investigate, and we gave you the visibility into them using capabilities that are best suited for those actual environments, right? And so that's a really important thing here, that is what we're able to do, is give you the full set of capabilities and meet you wherever you are on your cloud and app modernization journeys. Okay? Now, of course, there is also the question of the third branch. Did anyone notice that there were 3 branches to follow and we kind of ignored the middle one? Yes, maybe? Okay. Well, the funny thing about it is that that's actually part of a demo that we were giving in a different context, but there's actually interesting data showing up there that could be of interest as well, because what we had done in that case was actually integrate thousandized data into ITSI as well, so that you could then get a view into the synthetic data that would tell you how things are performing as a regular baseline, right? So rather than necessarily have to react to something that's already kind of falling apart, you could have the visibility ahead of time and know what's going on and maybe see it coming, right? And so that's part of the visibility that we provide as well as part of this observability portfolio. It's not just the ability to go and dig deep when you've got an issue that has already kind of hit you and fix them more quickly. It's about getting to a more proactive stance, okay? All right. So now, having shown you that demo, right, and talked a little bit about the different product offerings, I wanted to dig into one of the things that customers actually tell us they like about this portfolio as a whole and why they choose Splunk. Now, there's a few different pieces to this, right? And it all comes down to this question of, can you build a leading observability practice? Because that is ultimately what enables you to be able to fix those problems quickly and get to that proactive stance and so on, right? So what are the things that are part of this? Well, number one, complete visibility across any environment and any stack. Secondly, the ability to have very early detection on problems and have all the information at your fingertips to actually help and solve things as they arise. And then finally, better control over the data that's coming in and the costs that are associated with it. Okay? So let me dig into each one of those a little bit more. So when it comes to complete business visibility, what do I mean about that? Well, I think if you're familiar with Splunk, you probably know that what it's been good for many years is bringing in vast amounts of data, usually log data, from a diverse set of sources that it then makes readily available for lots of different users to go and query. So you might be in security operations, you might be in IT operations. It is the same pool of data that you're dipping into to be able to get some insight, right? But in addition to just making it available, well, a lot of what we've done is help make it easy to correlate that data, because ultimately what matters is, can you get to a shared source of understanding of reality? Because when problems are occurring, a lot of times what happens is you have people who are looking at their particular piece of the environment and then talking to the next guy and saying, hey, what are you seeing and what are you seeing? And unfortunately, because the data is not shared across many of those tools that they're using, they don't have a consolidated understanding, right? And it sort of lengthens the amount of time it takes to figure out what's actually going on. And so Splunk, by being able to bring in all those different kinds of data, right, logs, metrics, traces, and so on, and being able to correlate them, that's what really gives you the start at complete business visibility. Now, it's not just the data, of course, right? A lot of what we've been doing over the past few years is helping you to make sense of that data. By being able to do things like, show you visualizations kind of out of the box, right? Being able to provide context on it by bringing in additional data around not just the underlying infrastructure, but the things that the applications you're doing, what those are doing for your business as a whole, right? And so as a result, you have very few blind spots in that. You have the ability to kind of get full coverage of the environment, and you have the ability to connect that to the business. Now, this is something that we've continued to work on as part of Cisco. Much of this, as Christine was talking about, is bringing in AppDynamics into this portfolio, right? So we've renamed AppDynamics. It's now part of the Splunk Observability portfolio here. And a lot of the work we've been doing is making sure it's an integrated component of that. So some fairly basic table stakes here, but hopefully signs of many more things to come, right, by starting out with the ability to deep link into Splunk logging from AppDynamics, and being able to have single sign-on as well, right, so that you can get to the right information when you're troubleshooting, and you can see the logs in the context of the application or the part of business that matters. Okay? All right. Now, the second thing here is around earlier detection of issues and faster investigation. And so, as I was saying earlier, a lot of this comes down to the fact that we have this data, right? But also the fact that we are helping you make sense of that by having better visualizations of that come out of the box, by processing the data in a way so that you can actually get the results for the alerts that you care about faster. Okay, so there's been a lot of optimization in terms of the underlying architecture to make sure that those things are delivered on time, right? In other words, when the problem is actually occurring rather than at some long interval pull afterward, right? Because when you're trying to meet your SLAs, every second counts, right? And we know that, and we've architected for that scenario. Now, on top of that, we're also taking those alerts and helping to make sense of those so that if you have a lot of them, sometimes you don't know which one to prioritize or how they're related to one another. And that's where that correlation part comes in, right? The ability to say, okay, these things are actually part of a logical incident. So you can think of, this cluster of alerts as being something that somebody needs to go follow up on with a shared set of information, right? And then this set of alerts is maybe something you don't need to worry about because it's not affecting the business in the way that these other things are. Right? And so that ability to correlate things correctly and well is a critical part of what we've been doing here. Now, of course, we are continuing to innovate on this area as a whole as well. Now, we've only gone a few minutes into the presentation. I'm now going to say the word AI. You are expecting me to say that at some point today. And in fact, that has been a very, very heavy investment for us, right? Not just across Cisco at large, but also within the set of tools that we provide to you as part of Splunk. So one of the key things that we've shown a preview for is an AI assistant for Observability Cloud, which actually lets you have a chat-like interface to go and interrogate your data. Right? So rather than having to go kind of point and click around, you can simply ask, okay, hey, how's my service doing? What's different about this today than yesterday? What are some other things that are going on in the environment, right? And this ability to do so actually is pretty interesting, right? Because it really cuts down on the amount of time it takes to get to something that's actionable and something that helps you restore service more quickly. I'll just tell a short story about this because about 3 or 4 years ago, we actually launched Splunk Observability Cloud, okay? And at the time, we did this demo. I was super proud of this demo, by the way, because we had the ability to go, okay, I got this alert over here. It's related to the service. Now I can see this service is part of this overall application, and I can see that from that application service map that, in fact, there's an issue with the code push, and it's causing these issues in the Kubernetes cluster underneath, right? Now, that demo took about 10 minutes, give or take, right? And that was with me knowing exactly where to go in the product to see the alert, click on the right link to get to the view of the map, click on the right thing to get to the underlying clusters, click on the right piece to get to the log information, right? 10 minutes. Now, we actually have a recorded version of that exact same demo using the AI assistant, and you simply ask the question, and it's smart enough to go and get you that information, right, without you having to query every little bit, without having to know where to click. So you save about 9 minutes, actually, in doing that. And 9 minutes, when you've got a problem, that's a long time, right? So we're very, very excited about this, and very excited to sort of bring that to market soon. Now, we've taken the AI theme and kind of broadened it out in other areas as well. So, for example, within AppDynamics, with the Help Center there, you're able to get to the right documentation. That's just sort of a first step. There'll be more to come on that front. And we've also done things like take that AI into IT Service Intelligence to help you actually not just correlate alerts that come in, but have fundamentally smarter alerts to begin with. So, for example, we'll take a look not just at the alerts that come in, but the data that's in Splunk and say, hey, what is normal for this? And when it's not normal, can you just tell me that, right? And actually help you create a smarter alert from that, from the machine learning that we do against that data, okay? Now, there are a couple other things that we've done. I'll just quickly mention them because they're newer, and I'm always excited when we have something new. We took the Kubernetes Navigator that's part of our offering and really extended that to make sure that you have deep visibility into all the entities that make up a Kubernetes environment. Okay? We also made it so that you could take a look at the data that's specific to you if you're somebody who has a service that is running on top of that cluster, right? And so that complements what we had done before, which is primarily for the infrastructure owner, somebody who actually is running Kubernetes on behalf of multiple service owners, okay? And now the last thing that we've done very recently, and I think it should release very soon here, is actually bringing a common look and feel across different parts of our portfolio. We're starting with AppDynamics and Observability Cloud, and we'll be extending that to other pieces as well. But the whole goal of this is to make it so that it's a lot easier for anybody who has to look at that data to actually be able to do that without learning new things, right? Because the last thing you want when you're in the heat of an incident is to be like, hey, where do I go and search for that thing, right? So the simple things like the magnifying glass for the search bar is in the same spot, right? If you need to go and change your profile, it's in the same spot. Those things really just cut down on the time and energy it takes to adopt a tool and actually get the value out of it, right? And so that's something that I think we'll continue to iterate on, and there's a lot more coming in that space. Now, the last part here is around control over your data and your costs. Now, some of you who are familiar with Splunk may be looking at these things going, okay, he's talking about bringing in petabytes of data. He's talking about applying AI to this. Can I afford it, right? And the question is a good one, but we've been really focused on making sure the answer to that is yes, because it's not just a matter of the cost of the data. It's about the value you're getting out of the data that's being brought in and our ability to make sure that those are aligned with one another. Okay, so how are we doing that? Well, the first part of it is that we're just giving you a lot more control over the data that comes in. So with Observability Cloud, and we've been investing in this as well in AppD, we've been adopting OpenTelemetry. And actually, we are the single largest contributor to the OpenTelemetry project. Okay. Now, this is, for those who have not heard that before, it is now, I would say, the leading standard for telemetry data across logs, metrics, and traces. And more to come. And the good thing about it, right, in addition to it being a single way to bring in all those different classes of data, is that it actually helps you correlate that data right out of the gate by having very standardized naming conventions, right? So if any of you have tried to implement these kinds of systems in your organization without the benefit of standardized naming and standardized metadata, you'll quickly run into that as an issue, right? Because that's another one of those things that gets in the way of people being able to correlate the information they're seeing when there's an issue, okay? So that's sort of thing number one, right, is you've got OTel, you're not locked into a vendor. We're competing for your business based on the insight that we're able to deliver. Now, the other thing that we're doing here is much more around what you do with the data once it's been collected, okay? Because, not every bit of data is created equal in terms of the value that it brings. And so there's a lot of things that we've been doing here, especially in the last couple years, around making sure that you can get the value out of the data and that the data that comes in is the right data. Okay, so what does that actually mean? Now, there are a few things that we've released over the past couple of years. I'll actually start with something that's not on the slide. It's called Metrics Pipeline Management. And what that does is it looks at the data that's coming in and tells you right out of the gate, okay, is this something that is actually in use in an alert or in a dashboard? Because that's a good sign that that data is valuable to somebody, okay? Now, once you have that information, you can then decide, okay, if it's not being used, do I really want this, right? Because the data that comes in, I'm going to end up paying for it. So maybe I want to either aggregate that down to something more consolidated and more kind of meaningful, or maybe I want to just drop it on the floor, right? Because, why bring in data that you don't need? Now, there are some cases also where the data that's coming in, you're not quite sure if you need it or not. And that's where archive metrics comes in. Because what that allows you to do is then say, okay, if I want to keep it around just in case, right, can I put that in call it a holding pen or a recycle bin or something like that, right? Where if I figure out that, in fact, I do need this sometime later on, I can simply rehydrate the data and make use of it again as if it's part of what I got. So we see a lot of folks using this kind of thing, especially for cloud-native environments, right? Because let's take, we'll stick with the Kubernetes cluster example. Oftentimes, you have data that's specific to containers. And containers are here 1 second, maybe gone the next. And so do you need all of that data to come in? Well, you probably need to understand in aggregate how the services that are delivered on top of those are performing, right? So you can use the pipeline management to do that. You might want to keep around the per container data for troubleshooting in case something goes wrong. So that's a perfect fit for archive metrics. And after a period of time, you know, the containers are gone, the data ages out, no big deal, right? You didn't really pay for that data in the first place. Now, the thing that we've added actually here in November is a set of capabilities around analysis of the actual metric data that's coming in beyond whether it's being used. And so the capabilities are around things like what is the cardinality of the data? What are the things associated with a particular dimension or set of tags that are coming in to help you better manage that data as well, so that if there's something that is kind of causing an explosion in the cardinality of the data, which then affects the cost, you're able to see that and take action as appropriate. Okay. So now all of these capabilities that we've been delivering have actually landed us in a pretty good spot from a product capability perspective, right? A number of analysts out there have been taking a look at what we do, and in the reports that they're putting out there, we're showing up as a leader. We're especially proud of the fact that we're the only vendor that is a leader in both observability and security, okay? But probably more important than that is the fact that we have a lot of customers who are seeing results from this, and that obviously influences what the analysts say as well. And so there's a long list of customers who have adopted these capabilities in some form or fashion and gotten a lot of positive results from that. Some examples of the results are really along the lines of what you would hope to see if you had a very strong observability practice. Part of that is the alerts that come in, they actually make sense. So you have fewer false positives to deal with, right? It might be that you are trying to manage the growth and making sure that as things are scaling up, that you've got that under control, right? That you're not sort of spending money and throwing good money after bad, right? You're able to keep control of that, understand what is going on, what's being used. And the last piece here is around developer productivity. Now, I think up front, Christine talked about a report that we had put out around the cost of downtime, right? And how a bunch of that was associated with direct costs, but there are also indirect costs when you have downtime, specifically around your ability to drive innovation. And that is coming here in the form of developer productivity, where people who have adopted these tools are generally able to see higher developer productivity because they're spending less time finding and fixing problems, and they're able to get ahead of them, right, with a more proactive approach. Okay? All right. So that's a summary of kind of some of the things that I've seen. Now, to bring that more to life, I'd like to bring Christine back to the stage, and along with her, Laura Vetter, CTO at Evolutio. Please join me in welcoming them to the stage.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I think you can keep the clicker, right? Thank you. I'm back. And this time I brought a friend. So welcome, Laura. Maybe if you could introduce to the audience here yourself, tell me a bit yourself and Evolutio.
So my name's Laura Vetter, and I'm the CTO of a company called Evolutio, and we help clients around observability and monitoring. So we work a lot with the Cisco portfolio and other products, and we're experts in observability.
Now, I believe you've been working a long time with Splunk and AppDynamics, right? So can you share with us how are the customers reacting to this, us becoming one big family?
So most of our clients actually use both Splunk and AppDynamics, and they have for a long time. So I think for them, they're very excited about the merger of the two companies because there's a lot of new things that need to happen around cloud and around network visibility, and all of that being under the Cisco umbrella makes a lot of sense, especially with Cisco's big foothold in networking.
So you heard me talk about digital resilience earlier. What are the most recent trends that you see in customers approaching digital resilience?
So I think for digital resilience, there is a really big push to get network monitoring in a better spot than it has been. I think a lot of our clients have been using SNMP traps for a really long time, and there's a really big need to modernize in that space. So there's some new technologies that have come out around eBPF, and also even just synthetic-based offerings that are starting to really explore NetFlow. That is really exciting, because with NetFlow, one of the big drawbacks, it's either turn the fire hose on or you get nothing. And, it's easy to identify a problem if it's still happening, but if it happened in the past, you really have to wait for it to happen again. So I'm pretty excited about what's happening in the Cisco portfolio in those two areas.
Perfect, that's great. Now, can you share, were there some challenges that was, common, and there was like some of the most ones that comes up frequently?
Yeah, so I think for a lot of clients, people start out really observing or monitoring via logs, which frankly is a very hard and expensive way to do observability. So I think one of the challenges is to really get the cost footprint under control as companies are modernizing and moving to the cloud. So for our clients, it's a big strategy to move from log-based techniques to metrics and tracing, which the demonstrations you've been seeing here are around metrics and tracing. So, even S&MP, that ends up being a log-based approach. That needs to go the way of the dinosaur, and people need to be moving to metrics and tracing, because that's really where the future of this is going.
Yeah. And you heard me say earlier, some of the challenges, one of the most common challenges we have is the teams are using separate tools. They have their own tools, their own set of tools to deal with matrix and traces, right? Can you share with us and elaborate further about this challenge?
Yeah, so, there's lots of different environments where people have technology stacks now. People usually have them in traditional data centers. They may have them in different clouds. They may have them in a private cloud, and they may even have third parties like Equinix in the mix. So it's becoming very complicated. So as that happens and applications get stood up in different environments, a lot of times the observability tooling also becomes siloed. Maybe the Azure team has moved on with App Insights. Maybe the AWS team is really embedded in CloudWatch. That then becomes a problem of its own, because when something happens, you don't have access to the right data, nothing is correlated, and it's really hard to tell what exactly is happening. And I think, from my experience, that's when tracing becomes so important, and having a distributed trace. Because a lot of applications now are talking to a different cloud environment or to the data center, and that's where you get the latency. And some of that latency is actually normal, but when that latency spikes, that's when you need to know it. And tracing really fills a gap there that people need.
Now, I've often talked to customers, and some of the things that they've raised is, well, that's great, but we've got different stakeholders, they're using different teams. How do you get buy-in from all these stakeholders?
So it's really important to be thoughtful about what your goals are. So if your goals are to really make observability ready for all these different environments, and really ready for, businesses want to release new features at a much more frequent cadence now. That's kind of a competitive advantage. So you want to be moving to daily or weekly releases. You really need an observability platform that's going to bring everything together and give you that cohesive view. And so it's really important to be thoughtful on the front end in that case. If you have people going off and buying other tool sets that are not part of the observability strategy of the organization, it ends up obviously filling a short-term hole, and somebody had the budget to do it, so they did it. But it doesn't allow you to drive standards, it doesn't allow you to drive common techniques, and a lot of times it's even hard to get access to that data then. And it definitely is impossible to get it in the middle of a war room. So you're back to war rooms. You have to have the architects on the phone who not only have access to the data but can understand it. And with today's really distributed environments, that can't be the strategy.
Yeah, no, I've often seen that as well, that often when you have that environment, you've got to start bringing the architects in, so there's another additional teams that you've got to involve, and that really drags out the triage, right?
Yes.
So let's come back to some of the customers that you've been working with. How are they using the Splunk Observability portfolio today?
So we actually have a company here in Australia that we work with that does auto finance. And when you think of auto finance, you think of loans, you think we're making a loan. But the thing for auto finance companies that's the most important is that loan answer come back instantaneously almost. So when people go to a car dealership to buy a car, they pick out a vehicle, and then they go to the financing department. What actually happens is that financing department makes a bid to many auto finance companies all at once. So think of all the things that happen with that bid then. It's like, I have a person's identity, I have the vehicle they want to drive, I have their insurance information, and then you got to go and validate all of that, check their credit, figure out their income, all of that, and then you come back with an answer. So it is a very broad and involved process, but that answer has got to be so fast. So the great thing about what Cisco has done is on both the AppDynamics and Splunk Observability side, they have made big investments into being able to understand the business, so like which dealer is asking the question, and also allows you to really target key KPIs like how fast did the whole thing take, while still having the data on, like, if we are having latency, where is it? Is it with a third party that's maybe checking credit? Is it with our systems? And that is actually a big game changer to really getting to the heart of the issue, which is how fast are we delivering loans to the very large dealers that we want to service, and has it degraded over like the prior period? So let's say yesterday or last week at the same time. So that's a big part of observability, is you want to compare it to a prior period, because then you really understand normal, which is something that Patrick mentioned also.
Yeah, that's right. And I want to come back to your raised point about the KPIs, right? Were there particular KPIs or business metrics that companies today monitor really closely?
Yeah, so a lot of our clients monitor like authorizations or new customer acquisition or revenue. So they're monitoring business KPIs and trends with that, along with the observability data. And what that allows you to do is really have visibility into, is something happening right now that's impacting my business? Because any of us that have been around observability knows something is happening right now. Like, you're getting CPU alerts, you're probably getting memory alerts. But understanding the context of how is the business doing is so key to know, do I need to start a war room? Do I need to look at this right away? Do I need to just wait, look at this on Tuesday, because it probably doesn't matter to the business right now, and it's something that is a long-term thing that I need to look at. So really having that context is so key.
Yeah, no, 100%, because you could see issues, for example, oh, the disk is reaching 90%, but does it really matter? Do I need to look at it? Because if the orders are still getting true, does it really matter, right? And I was talking about how it's really important to get that business impact context on that, right? Like, for example, the supply chain. You have similar examples as well that you can share.
Yeah, so we have a client that we work with that people place orders through their website, very common use case. So one of the things that order does is it obviously gets booked with an app, but then it actually goes to Salesforce, and that customer's account is annotated that an order was placed, and then the order is actually fulfilled. What they found out is that about 20% of the orders were not being fulfilled, but the downside is it took them 28 days to figure that out. And the reason is because the issue was with Salesforce. So when the issue is with a third party, it becomes really hard to tell that this process that is disjointed, there's like steps that happen across different days. It's really hard to tell that that's happening. So having an observability solution like Splunk really helps you understand those low-level defects, because it can chain things together that are disconnected.
Yeah. So great examples. Thanks for sharing, Laura. So if you want to, like, there are some key benefits that surface up through when you've achieved through Splunk Observability?
Yeah, so some of the key benefits, I mentioned the business observability, which I'm a big fan of. I also think that things that are happening in the network layer for Cisco and Splunk are a big deal, and the investments they're making in that area are really impressive. I mentioned the ability to get NetFlow data, which for the networking clients that I have, it's the number one question that I have is, can you get me some NetFlow? So Thousand Eyes has recently released some features that allow you to get NetFlow. So let's take the example of the network pipe gets full and you end up having an outage at a site. Why did it happen? Well, in real time with this capability, you can see that the issue is that you had too many servers take a Windows update all at once. And very common thing, but if it's not still happening, really hard to figure out what happened. So with that NetFlow data that is in the rearview mirror now, that type of stuff is really impactful. And correlating all that together into Splunk is what needs to happen to make it where you can see the network in context with all the other players, including the business.
So you've been doing this for a while, right? And I'm going to ask you to kind of like, I went through before earlier, my slides, we talked about go back in time. I'm actually going to ask you now to go forward in time, 5 years. How do you see observability evolving in the next 5 years?
So one of the things that I'm most excited about is observability data, when done right, gives you data that is highly organized, is time-based, and is well-groomed. And when you add the business context on it, where you understand revenue, how your clients are doing across the board, it really allows the opportunity to have a lot more AI happen on that. not just for regular observability use case, like how are we doing, are we up, down, compared to prior periods. It also allows you to answer questions for the business like, I'm an auto manufacturer and can I identify vehicles that are at risk of being a warranty claim while they're still in the factory? That's the type of stuff that we're working with Cisco and clients on to figure out, because the data you collect with observability, it's all there. You just need to add the things that AI needs, like which vehicles had a warranty claim, so you can really use AI on that in the future. So I'm super excited about where telemetry and observability data goes in the AI world, because it's a huge, well-groomed data set.
That's right. And we saw Patrick also share that, at least the initial elements of AI in there to just really get it going, get you understanding, querying it, ask it questions, right? So I want to make sure I leave the audience with tips and advice for anyone here looking or maturing the observability journey.
So I think that observability, when you get into it, it's pretty complicated. So when you walk up on, okay, we want to mature here, the most important thing you can do is set some priorities for your organization that have nothing to do with any platform at all. It's like, are we going to be ready for a cloud-native world? Are we going to be invested in getting network observability as part of our culture? Are we going to be invested in having a business lens to things? And then when you do that, you can actually tier your apps and have different ways that you kind of get in front of common problems like naming conventions, RBAC concerns. But then it allows you to look at platforms in a much different lens, where you're looking at where they are now, where they've already made investments, what is their roadmap, what is their overall strategic plan, and it's going to end up in a much better result for your organization. So it goes back to the old saying, first things first. Decide what you want to do, and then go survey the landscape, and then make the best decision for you.
It sounds simple, but really effective as well, right? So now I think we've come to the end of this session. I'd like to thank you for your time. Thank you for sharing your insights and experiences that you work with the customers around the world. Give a round of applause for Laura here. Thank you. And with that, I am going to welcome back on stage Patrick Lin to wrap up this session. No more high five.
All right. That was excellent. Got to hear it with the headphone on as well. So lots of interesting insights in there, right? And I think one of the things that I wanted to actually close on was talking a little bit about the kinds of patterns that I've seen out there with customers, right? Because Laura's right. It's really important to have a set of goals, a journey that you want to be on as you think about the adoption of observability. And I think what we've seen at Splunk is that there's a set of patterns out there, right, where initially it's really about making sure that you have visibility across the environments that you have inside your organization. So making sure that you're able to actually troubleshoot it and have the kind of reactive capability built in, right? Now, once you've got that, right, I think the next question is, okay, are you sure you're doing the right part of that first, right? And that's really where making sure you've got the business context comes in. So oftentimes I think what I see is that customers will start to identify out of the data that's being brought in, what are the things that are actually measuring something they care about from a business perspective, and how do those relate then to the underlying metrics or logs that come in. The next piece then is about saying, okay, now that I've got that information, can I actually get it to a place where the organization more broadly can use it? Because it's not so useful if it's just another tool that is trapped in one part of the team, right? You want multiple teams to be able to look at that shared source of truth and be able to get to a kind of mean time to innocence thing as quickly as possible, and make sure you've got the right people focused on the right problem. And then finally, I think that once that is sort of under control, then you have the ability to say, okay, I've kind of got most people understanding how to take advantage of these things. Now we can start to look for patterns that are more indicative, things that are going to come and hit us, right? So that you can build actual resilience into what you're doing, rather than simply the reactive capability. Okay. So very, very common sort of journey that I think we see people doing. I encourage you to kind of dig in a little bit more on that. Now, the last thing I wanted to talk about was the roadmap for where we're headed from a product perspective, right? So I talked a lot earlier about some of the innovations that are coming here very shortly, around the integration of AppDynamics into the portfolio, AppDynamics across with Observability Cloud, and down with the logging platform, up with IT Service Intelligence, right? And so all of that, I think, adds to the benefit around kind of unified visibility, right? And so what we're going to do on top of that is continue to extend that. So I think the demo branch that we didn't show was the one about ThousandEyes bringing in that kind of information, right? So bringing in network data is going to be very helpful, I think, for, again, getting to that faster mean time to innocence. We also are looking at bringing in multiple parts of the network data so that you can get a cross-domain view of network service health. Okay, so that's going to be a pretty interesting thing as well, because otherwise, most often, I think people are looking at individual tools for individual parts of the network, individual pieces of hardware. Okay. Now, the last thing here I think that's worth mentioning is that we're actually extending the definition of observability here over time, right? And I think that in a lot of ways, we've already seen it evolve, right? Observability in the beginning was mostly about just, hey, I have a lot of log data, let me make some sense of that, right? We added different data types that are effectively about different use cases and being able to optimize the storage and processing and querying of the data to be able to deliver against those, right? So metrics, being there to give you faster alerting, better up-to-date kind of dashboarding, right? Tracing, as Laura mentioned, to help you get an understanding of how things are related to one another and have that be built into the data directly so that you're not left guessing as to what the sort of transaction flow is across a wide variety of services, okay? And so we've sort of extended that definition by adding in digital experience monitoring. We're going to add network monitoring, and I think we're going to continue expanding on this by doing things like starting to look at how we can start optimize the environments and not just provide visibility. So looking at cost optimization, looking at optimization of how applications use resources, and also looking at how the data that we bring in is also useful for security use cases, because this is one of the things that I think I mentioned earlier, that a lot of our customers like the fact that the data they bring in is broadly applicable, right? It's not just for a single purpose, it is for multiple purposes. And the fact that, let's say, we're able to bring in information about code vulnerabilities and then pass that along into enterprise security so that you can then generate notable events on top of that, right? Those are the kinds of things that are going to drive even more benefit, I think, for customers as they think about observability kind of becoming a bigger and bigger thing for them over time. Okay, so I've talked about a lot of different things today, and so did my colleagues here. I'd like to invite you guys to also take a walk to the back here where you can see the Splunk booths. In that general direction, there are a lot of people who are ready to give demos about different parts of the product, answer questions you might have. And with that, I'd like to thank you for your attention today. All right, enjoy the rest of the show.
ANZ Bank is one of Australia's biggest banks with over 8 million retail and business customers, and we operate across 30 countries. Importantly, we have over 430 branches in Australia, some of them are in remote locations. Wi-Fi and network availability been challenging for the branches. The staff has been frustrated with using applications, and we have been unable to provide our customers with the reliable Wi-Fi support. We bought in Cisco services, and the challenge we gave them was to help us transform that experience across the entire branch network in just 12 months. We have worked closely with the Cisco over years on some of our biggest transformation process. We see them very much as a part of our own team, so the trust is absolute. SD-WAN was the solution, and the rollout has remarkably happened in just 8 months, 4 months ahead of a schedule. To make that happen while keeping our branches operating, Cisco services and the network team often did the work during the night. The most remarkable outcomes was that Cisco automation was able to turn a process that took 8 hours to switch a branch over to just 1 hour. The results are obvious. We have actually seen a lift in engagement by branch staff because they can do their job more effectively and easily. It also enabled us to deliver a customer Wi-Fi that is fast, safe, and secure. Cisco services will be part of our future. They deliver a quality outcome, they're a trusted advisory for a bank, and we'll be working with them for many more years to come.
Hi, I am Simar Singh, Technical Solution Architect with Cisco Meraki. Today I will talk about sustainability, the latest buzzword which means different things to different stakeholders. With Meraki, onboarding onto sustainability journey is just so much easier. There are 3 key outcomes that we will focus on today. First, reduce energy. This is achieved by turning off access points and cameras in the facility when there is no one to use or to monitor. Second, reduce travel. Since this is a cloud-based platform and secure access is available anywhere, it prevents multiple customer site visits. Third, avoid waste. Think about the number of power cables and plugs that you don't have to deploy. And of course, at Meraki, we promote product reuse and take back initiatives. Come and join the journey with us. Thank you.
DP World is one of the largest logistics companies in the world. Per year, we move about 3 million containers, or boxes as we call them. If we stop, the nation starts to stop. Every minute, every hour is crucial.
When you turn up at a terminal, you can see the scale and sheer size of the operation. But what people don't see is what's behind the scenes. One of the important things for our business is ensuring that we have that solid foundation. And you can't do that with fragmented technologies. And that's where Cisco come to play for us. Because we can start to use their full product suite and have that one house view of our technology stack. And so we start with our key cranes. And the ultra-reliable wireless backhaul there is a really important part of the technology stack for us here at DP World. Our industrial Ethernet switching, it's really not seen by anyone, but it's the lifeblood and carries that data across and allows all our equipment to talk seamlessly. And then we move to our core network, and the Catalyst network series from Cisco really comes to play there. That's where we have to, in this critical business, rely on those solid foundations of our tech stack.
We have established a national control centre, and that coordinates with all 4 ports and the ships that arrive into those ports, and where those boxes get put onto the ground and when those boxes get moved on to external transports.
$750 million worth of cargo goes through our business every single day. This business is mission critical. We are 24/7, and so it's important we have systems that are reliable and they have that uptime.
Our container ports in 10 years' time will be drastically different. To manage that environment, we need clever systems and rock-solid networks.
But it's like an orchestra. You've got to get every little part right for it to work and really hum. And so that's where having different products from Cisco and having that one-house view is really important for us so that everything works seamlessly. This business is huge. And so as you take a real step back and a high-level view of this business, technology is everywhere. And it's important that we have the right technology in place for the future.
Tonsley is a really special place. It's a place that we have helped to bring forward from having been a former car manufacturing plant to now one of Australia's leading innovation districts, and an innovation district that's attracting attention globally.
For years now, Flinders University and Cisco have partnered at the Tonsley Innovation District in South Australia, turning research into reality.
Cisco bring enormous experience, but they also bring their technology to bear in the Factory of the Future environment. And they've made a big commitment to ensuring that we've got access to the best technology available to them, so that's enormously valuable.
Cisco's investment is supporting collaborative spaces, dedicated laboratories, and the people who have the ability to make a very real difference.
The Digital Health Design Lab at Tonsley is an exciting space
From our perspective, there has been both the funding part of that to get the lab running and fund some of the research, but also being able to engage with the industry directly through us and through Cisco and translate the research into practical outcomes.
You need partners, you need partnerships, you need partners who get it, and Cisco definitely get it.
What a session. So much to take away from that. Thank you, Patrick, Christine, and Mark. I think with observability, a lot of your questions must have been answered by now. With Patrick's interview from yesterday, the Keynote deep dive, I think a lot of us have been set for success in terms of observability, taking in AppDynamics and see what future holds for us with Cisco and Splunk. So now, I think that has been a little bit of a information overload in terms of observability. So we're going to take turns and shift gears a little bit, and we have in our studio with Dave Omri, who is the Vice President of Product Management at SASE. So we're going to hear from them while they debunk a few myths for SASE. So over to you, Dave.
Thank you, Shika. Yes, that's right. Super exciting here. We have Omri, VP of Product Management SASE Solutions. So fantastic. Omri, thank you for joining us. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. Thank you for having me.
No problems. I think it's nice for you to finally sit down. I've heard you had a busy week so far at Cisco Live.
Yeah, busy week. I'm enjoying the lovely weather here.
It's beautiful outside. Beautiful, I must admit. How are you finding this year's Cisco Live? You've been out on the floor. I know you've been speaking with customers, partners.
Yeah, I've been actually at Cisco Live Melbourne this is the third event in a row. So definitely every year you see more and more momentum. It's pretty busy. A lot of great discussions with partners, with customers. There's a lot of buzz that's happening. SASE definitely is an area of interest, so I'm keeping myself pretty busy here.
Yeah, SASE is definitely an area of interest, especially for my customers as well. So I know there's a lot of my customers tuning into this interview, I must admit. So that is what we're here to talk about today. We're here to talk about SASE, right? So the common day, hybrid work, what would you say are the main drivers for SASE adoption today?
Yeah, I think it's a good question. Traditionally when we look at SASE, there were essentially the classic drivers for SASE with the mass adoption of cloud technologies.